for our tip of the week, which we're going to be covering Liberty Bankers Life. We're going to specifically be covering their final expense product, the ins and outs of it, some of the competitive advantages. They also have another product called Flex for Life, which we will definitely cover at a different time. But we're really going to stick to our bread and butter, which is the final expense product. If you're not familiar with Liberty Bankers, I would definitely recommend getting contracted with them. It's definitely not our primary carrier, nor do I think they want us to be their primary carrier. But we do send them a significant amount of business. In fact, Jimmy, we are, believe it or not, we are Liberty Bankers Life. We are like their third or fourth largest IMO that they do business with. So it's a smaller company, guys. It's not, a $1 trillion company like a Transamerica or a Mutual of Omaha. But it's a great company. They got a great little niche in this simplified issue market. This is a little selling sheet here on the final expense product. We can just kind of highlight a couple of things here for you. Let me just read this. This just talks about the steps of selling final expense. One of the unique things about Liberty Bankers Life, right, Jimmy, is that it's a paperless application. You do the entire application over the phone, guys, which is pretty unique. So one cool thing about that is that you can't make any mistakes. It's voice verification, voice signature. You do need to, ideally, you want to complete the phone and you want to get everything done while you're in the home. Technically, I guess you could do the worksheet and call back later, but I always like to try to complete this while I'm in the home. Let's just read through the real quick the steps here. Number one, you make the final expense sale. You pre-qualify your client using the new application worksheet, which we're going to go over that. You make the call to DIMA, D-I-M-A. There's an 800 number. You do the initial point of sale interview for instant underwriting decision and application paperwork completion. So they're going to give you a hard approval right there on the phone, and they also give you the policy number while you're right there on the phone. And then third is that for your records, you simply just keep the 2-page worksheet. There's absolutely no need to send that in, and your client's policy will be issued. Any other little highlights, Jimmy, you want to mention before we move on?
No, you got that.
Okay, guys, this is the 2-page worksheet. This is the first page of the worksheet, and it is basically, it's just like an abridged kind of application. Like I said, it's only 2 pages. So when you call in to do the phone interview, you want to make sure that your deal is solid. You've quoted the premiums. You can use their mobile app on your phone, and you do it just like a regular deal. You do the entire process. You do the 3-option worksheet. Once they say, okay, I want 10,000 for $65 a month, then you just move in and you do this. You just fill out this 2-page worksheet, and you go ahead and confirm the billing information as well. Because since we're doing the entire application over the phone, the interviewer is also going to need banking information, routing information, and then billing dates of when they want the billing to be done. One cool thing is, now this is an old one, right, Jimmy? This is an old worksheet because Liberty Bankers does not take Direct Express anymore, right?
Yeah, that is correct. They no longer take that.
Yeah, there's probably a new worksheet out there, guys, so I apologize. But no Direct Express cards with Liberty Bankers. It's checking or savings only, and they do give you the option of getting that coordinated. I think you can still do one of the Wednesdays, right, Jimmy? So if you want it on the 3rd or the 4th Wednesday, I believe that's still going. Yeah, so that's still, even though they're not doing Direct Express, that's still an option. if you have a client that gets paid, let's say on the fourth Wednesday of the month, they can still have their premiums. Hey, one real quick tip about premiums and who they will accept. I know you're really good at this. What about some of the off banks like MetaBank or some of these other ones? Any experience with that, Jimmy? Whether or not Liberty will accept those?
They do accept those other banks. What Joe's referring to is sometimes people don't have a traditional bank account like with a local bank brick and mortar building, but they might have a debit card that they got through the grocery store or maybe like Ace Cash Express or something like that. And so their direct deposit goes into that debit card, and that's all they have. However, there is a routing number and account number associated with that card, and all you have to do is flip the card around, call the 800 number on the back of the card, and listen to your automated options, select the one that says direct deposit information, and it will give you the routing and account number to that debit card, and they do accept it. Most of the time it's called MetaBank, but there are a couple other banks out there that do that as well.
That's awesome. That's really good because um, this would be one of those times where we'd want to use it as compared to like Transamerica, which does not accept MetaBank. So, the client may have a let's say they have a health condition, because we all know, Transamerica is a great company. If you have like, for example, COPD, you can still get a standard rate. But what do you do with a client that has COPD, but they have MetaBank? So this is why you gotta know all these little different. It's good to know these different carriers, man, so you can switch. The other thing on this worksheet, which you may not be used to, is the height and weight. Um, they do have a height and weight chart. It is very, very liberal, very much in lines with the rest of the companies like Mutual of Omaha's height and weight chart or Forrester's. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's on this worksheet that we need to be careful on. It seemed like there was one more thing I wanted to say on this. Maybe that's it. Guys, this is the second page with the health questions. One thing that I can attest to is that Liberty Bankers is very liberal with underwriting. And in addition to that, they're very competitive on their rates. If you look at their preferred rates, it's right up there, just as good as Transamerica or Mutual of Omaha, and sometimes even better. So, I mean, this is a first-class insurance company with a great rating and great rates for their clients. Anything you want to point out maybe on this before we move on, as far as some things, Jimmy, maybe they need to be watchful for when or like maybe doing the medical questions?
Are you gonna do the product overview in a minute, or can I do that real quick? And then we'll
I
come
am
back.
going to do. Yeah, we have slides for the product overview. What
Okay,
is
all right.
what is it
We'll start on
specifically
this
you
now.
wanted to cover?
Well, I just want to make sure, like the main thing I love about Liberty Bankers is that this is a final expense product, but it starts at age 18,
Perfect.
not age 45 or 50.
Yeah.
And here's the beauty of it. They're the same questions for all ages. So as an example, Transamerica does ages 0 to 44, but the health questions get more stringent, and sometimes they would not qualify based on their medical in that younger age category. But with Liberty Bankers, it's the same set of health questions, and it's a perfect scenario, for people that are younger, and they don't have the more stringent questions, the same set of questions. So I mean, so like that's a real big plus right here.
That is a real big plus. I'm just seeing here real quick. Let's say if you're 25, could you still get a modified whole life?
I think modified is ages 40, Joe.
Yeah, there is a difference there, but you can still get the standard. So this is a really good application for, let's say, somebody that's in their 30s or 40s that's maybe has a few little health conditions.
Can I
Maybe like
go
you have
ahead?
an
Can I give some examples on underwriting, like what would go over here?
Yeah, we want to do let's get through and let's cover this real quick,
Okay, go
this
ahead.
application, and let them know that also this is a similar to Transamerica. This is a 3-tier application. Okay, so let's cover like this worksheet real quick, and then we'll get into all that because I do have a slide for that. But guys, basically you just read through part one. And if they answer yes to anything in part one, it's a no-go. Those are the knockout questions. If you can answer no to all the questions here, assuming everything is no, then you move into the part two. If they have a yes, let's say, for example, this one right here, within the past 2 years, have you been diagnosed, treated, tested positive, or been given medication advice by a member of the medical profession for, let's say they have angina or had, you know, surgery of some type, and we have a yes here, then it tells you right here that they're going to be qualified for modified if you have any yeses in this section. That's correct, right, Jimmy?
That is correct.
The good thing about this is that they could have multiple yeses and they potentially could still qualify for modified whole life, unlike some of our other carriers on a 3-tier application. If they have more than 2 yeses in this section, they're disqualified. And then when you get down into section 3, if any of these are marked yes, they're still going to qualify for simple standard. So what's good about that is that they could have, let's say, COPD and maybe hepatitis as an example. Okay.
Or even
Whereas
use before 25.
or so yeah, they could have COPD, hepatitis, and be on insulin, and potentially still get qualified for a standard rate. Pretty incredible, guys. That's one of the real cool things about this. So definitely take a look at this worksheet and get familiar with the health questions. And we do have them listed on the cheat sheet. Probably not as detailed as we should. The more and more I look at Liberty Bankers, the more I like them.
Hey, Joe, one thing, if you go back to that, I want to point out is in section 2, that's if they answer yes to any of these, they're modified, right? But even if they answer yes to more than one of those, they're still modified.
Right.
Right. And then going down to section 3, Joe just said it, even if they answer yes to multiple items in part 3, they're still standard. I mean, that's a beautiful thing right there.
It is. Unlike Transamerica, it could potentially either move them into graded or disqualify them altogether.
Now I do want to point out something that's a question in the top section, part 1. This is, you got to be careful with this. Number 6, it asks, within the last year, have you been confined to a hospital, which is a knockout question. So for example, I don't know, maybe they had something simple done that's not like associated with heart surgery or anything like that. I don't know, maybe they had something else going on and they had a hospital stay. That will come up on the MIB and that actually disqualifies them. So you just got to be careful with that.
Yeah, good point. Let's move on. All right, here's just some processes here. Paper application. Ask the health questions. Pre-qualify your clients for the correct plan. Make sure before you call in, make sure you know, do the worksheet so you know exactly what they qualify for. So if you're going for preferred, because they're going to ask you if they're preferred or not. Gather the important personal information. Read the required disclosures like the HIPAA form. In the ADBR form, because when you do the phone interview, they're going to ask the client, did your agent read you the disclosures or the HIPAA form? And if they answer no, then the interview's over. You got to go back and do that and call back in. So make sure you do that, or you kind of prep your client. You go through those forms so that the phone interview goes a lot smoother. Once you do a couple, you really kind of get used to it, how it works. You're going to call DIMA. They're going to speak to the agent first. They're going to get the client information and the bank information. Then they're going to speak to the client to obtain they're going to ask if the disclosures have been read. They're going to get permission for voice signatures. They're going to verify health information. They're going to go through the application in required forms, and then they're going to give agents an immediate writing decision. So some of the advantages and experiences. Application is easy and agent friendly. Health questions combine issues normally separated, which is a really important thing. The client has kind of participated in the process, feel like they're part of the decision. The client doesn't have to worry about whether or not they're going to get approved, and the beneficiary also may be used as a funeral home, whereas other carriers kind of frown upon that. Jimmy, anything else you want to add before we move on?
No.
Perfect. Okay, some of the competitive advantages. Their pricing. Liberty Bankers is a 3-tier application. They have preferred, standard, and modified. Guys, the preferred and the standard are immediate same-day coverage. And you can cover a lot of health issues and still get them a standard rate. Whereas with most carriers, for example, with COPD or liver issues, they would have to go modified or graded. Now, with their modified plan is a little bit different than, and they call it modified versus their modified plan would be the equivalent to a Mutual of Omaha or the Transamerica graded. What they refer to as graded is their modified. So this is really a graded product. It is a 2-year period. So once they get into the 3rd year, once they get past the 2 years and they're in the 3rd year, it's a 100% coverage. I'm sorry, it's return of premium. So there's a 3-year. Am I reading this right, Jimmy? With
Yeah.
Liberty Bankers, maybe theirs is a 3-year wait versus 2-year.
That's correct.
Okay, so extra year on their graded plan versus, let's say, a Mutual of Omaha or a Transamerica, it's 2 years with ROP plus 10%. But the benefit with this one is that the longer they keep the policy, they're gonna get more coverage. So once they've gotten through the 3rd year and they start the 4th year, it's going to be 100% of the coverage. So if it's a $10,000 benefit, once they get through that policy year, they're going to get an automatic 5% increase in coverage. So as an example, if it's a $10,000 benefit, they're going to get an extra $500 of coverage. And then once they make it past through the 6th year, they're going to get an extra 10%. So because it is a 3-year reduced death benefit, like I say, if they make it 6 years, they're going to get an extra 10% added to their death benefit with obviously no extra cost. So as an example, if it's a $10,000 policy, they're going to end up with $11,000 of coverage for the same price as the 10,000. Anything I'm missing or anything you want to add to how the modified works?
I want to clarify on the years. So
Okay.
the first 3 years is a graded benefit where it's a return of premium plus 10%. Going into the fourth year, which means 3 years and a day, beginning year 4, they're at 100% face amount. And then beginning on year 5, it's 105%. And then beginning on year 6, it's 110%. So really, it's after 5 years, then it goes up to 110%.
Right. So once they've been in the policy for 5 years in one day, it's
Exactly.
110%.
110%. And a lot of people really like this. I've sold a few of these, and they're okay with it.
Well, most people don't think they're going to die in 3 years anyway.
Right.
Depending on what they're, let's face it, man, if they got to go modified, why not go modified an extra year to get an extra 10% of coverage? And their modified pricing is pretty competitive. It
is.
Yeah, it really is. So another reason to use Liberty Bankers, have a competitive advantage over your competition. You can really sell that. Just some more competitive advantages we talk about: preferred and standard, issued as immediate benefit. They are very insulin friendly and COPD friendly as well. I know Jimmy already mentioned this. Issue ages 18 to 80 with the same application. That's a definite competitive advantage because most of our final expense companies start at age 40, 45, and even some of them are 50. And I want, here in a minute, Jimmy, I want you to give us that example of the client that you were because I know you've sold a couple of Liberty Bankers in the last few weeks. Okay, here's some available riders that they have. They have very good riders. One that comes with the policy is their accelerated death benefit rider. Guys, that's a no-cost rider. They can receive up to 80% of the face amount for terminal or chronic illness, which is different. Most of the policies only cover for terminal. There are benefits on this policy actually for chronic illness as well. I would recommend reading the actual disclosure, make sure that you fully understand that.
Hey, Joe, and another thing that is different about their accelerated death benefit rider, well, you have it right there in parentheses, no cost. I just want to kind of, they do not charge a fee. Like, with the other carriers, they either charge a percentage or they deduct an annual, the annual premium from the face amount. But with Liberty Bankers, there is no fee for that. They get 80% of it up front, and then the other 20% is paid upon death.
Right. So like an example, we can just compare it like to the other companies, like Mutual of Omaha. I think it's what, 4% they hold back? 6% on that, and then Transamerica holds back. They pay out 100%. Transamerica pays out 100% up front, but depending on the anniversary date of your policy, they're going to hold back whatever premiums were due for the rest of the year. So let's say, as an example, let's say you took your policy out in January, and you wanted to accelerate your death benefit in the month of June. So you have 6 months of premiums left before your anniversary date. Transamerica would accelerate 100% less those 6 months so you'd lose out on 6 months of premiums. This one you get everything. So, but you're only going to get 80% of it up front, and then once they actually pass, then you get the other 20%. Jimmy, are you familiar with any of the? I was going to try to look it up real quick. Are you familiar with the a chronic illness?
Yes, the chronic illness is defined basically as needing assistance with activities of daily living.
Okay.
And so if they are eligible for that, so like that could be that they're in a nursing home, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're in a nursing home.
Yeah, they could be receiving like home health care. Guys, my recommendation is I don't have any paperwork on that, but if you need clarification on that, just know that they do have a chronic illness. I would definitely contact, if you want more information on it, contact Liberty Bankers and read up on that particular disclosure so you can get more familiar with it. One of the difference on their accidental death and their accidental death is actually accidental death and dismemberment, which provides an additional benefit for death by an accident or if loss of arms, legs, eyes as a result of an accident. So, so let's say they're in an accident and they have to have their legs amputated. They would treat that the same as they can accelerate that and receive the benefit, while they're still living. So that's another competitive advantage to that. And then the other thing too on the accidental death, Jimmy, I was playing around with the calculator. It looks like to me that you can add the or the accidental death benefit all the way up to age 80.
Wow. Yeah, that I'm not sure about, but that sounds pretty
Well,
good.
I mean, I wasn't getting any defaults. I was like adding it in where like most of the carriers, I'd say average is about age 75 is the cutoff for accidental death. So, if you got someone in their late 70s, that's another advantage. You can add the accidental death, and that accidental death is good until age 100. Versus again, like Transamerica, the accidental death falls off at age 80. Mutual of Omaha, their accidental death does continue, but I think the cutoff is age 75. That's the oldest you can be to get it. So just another competitive advantage going towards Liberty Bankers. Now they have two riders for children. Don't get these confused. They have a children's benefit rider, and then they have a grandchild rider. Now technically, you could sell both of them. So if you I guess if you have someone that is um, has a child and a grandchild, and they're both under the age of 17, you could get them both covered. But one of the kind of the cool things about their children's rider, and this would be for your own children. This is not a grandchild rider. This is your children's rider. Remember, because we can write this policy on younger people. So let's say you're writing someone in their 30s or 40s and they have children. Okay, you can provide. It's a term rider. You can provide up to $20,000 of coverage. It will cover them to age 25. They have to be under the age of 18. So it covers them from age if the children are between ages 0 and 17, meaning they haven't had their 18th birthday yet. They could be 17 and 364 days old. It's for one cost. It's $3.49 for $5,000 of coverage, which sounds kind of expensive for $5,000. The benefit is that it covers all of your children. So it's not $3.49 per child. So, for example, if you got someone who's got 6 kids, it'll cover all 6 kids for $3.49. And if you want the 20,000 of coverage, when you use the mobile app, it's going to ask you how much coverage you want. You want 5. It goes in increments of 5, 10, 15, or 20, and then it'll adjust the price accordingly. And then each child is covered up until age 25, and then they have the option to convert that as well. So that's kind of a cool rider, especially if they have a lot of children. because you're covering all the kids for one price. The grandchild rider, there's only one option for that, and that covers each child covered for $7,500 of coverage. So there's no units, so you can't purchase multiple units. So you couldn't, for as an example, do 2 units for $7,500. It's just $7,500 per grandchild. And again, kind of like the child rider, they have to be between the ages of 0 and 17, so before their 18th birthday. And it's a $1.20 per grandchild. And I don't know if there's a limit. Do you know if there's a limit on how many children they can add?
I do not know.
I don't know either, guys, but that would be a good problem to find out. But it's a great rider, very inexpensive. $1.20 is a great price for $7,500 worth of coverage, and this again is convertible. So without any proof of health, at by age 25, they can convert that 7,500 up to 5 times the amount with Jimmy, I'm lost for words. What evidence of health? What do they?
Okay, so they
What do
can
they call that?
convert. They can convert both, either the children's or grandchildren's
Right.
rider, as long, up to age 25, to a whole life policy without proof of insurability. So in other
Yeah, there
words,
you go. Proof of insurability. That's the word I was looking for.
automatically accepted, and up to 5 times the death benefit. So, going with, like, let's say the 17, if you insured them for 20, they can convert that to 100,000 whole life policy
Yeah.
before they turn 25. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a really good rider, man. That's really good. So that's kind of cool. They have children's and grandchildren's. Don't
And
get
some,
those confused when you're quoting those.
yeah, so something I want to point out on the app, on the phone app that's on your phone that you're using to quote, there's one that simply says grandchild rider. You just put how many kids, how many grandkids, right? Right above that it says child rider. So that's how it distinguishes the the relationship. And so you could on the children's rider you can select from 5,000 in increments of 5 up to 20,000. So they don't necessarily have to do 20,000. They can do 5 or 10 or 15, but you select it and then you put how many children, and then on the grandchild underneath it you put how many children. So like Joe said earlier, you could have hypothetically a person that has both minor children under age of 18 and grandchildren under age 18,
Hmm.
and they can insure both of them. So
Yeah, we've seen that before, right?
yes, sir.
And then here's just a real quick example on some competitive advantage. Jimmy, I think this may be actually one of your cases that you had. This was let's see, let's just read through this. This is a 60-year-old female smoker used in an inhaler, probably for COPD. Also had type 2 diabetes, taking pills and insulin. In year 27 of, oh, they were in year 27 of a 30-year term. Jimmy, was this your case that you were working on?
I don't remember.
Got it. I think it was. I think you emailed this to me.
Okay.
Normally with COPD, we'd have to go through Transamerica, application part C4, question 10. However, in this case, application part C4, question 8C, insulin use qualified her only as a graded death benefit. My client was crushed. I pulled out the Liberty Bankers worksheet, and here's what I found. Worksheet, part 3, question, already qualified here as simple standard. As for the diabetes worksheet, part 1, question 3, diabetes at age 9 or younger was a no. Then question 5, uncontrolled diabetes was also no. Worksheet part 2, question E, complications with diabetes was no. Worksheet part 3C, insulin use before age 25 was also no. As a result, was only one yes to all the questions that would have been graded under Transamerica becoming standard rating day one issue under Liberty Bankers. My client was elated. I don't know who this email is from, but this is a real live case. This was either you or Don Patton. I don't know who else writes
That
emails
was
like this.
Don. Yeah, I don't remember typing that.
Oh, okay. This must be from Don Patton. I'm believing. Uh, Always do what's best for your client. In this case, the client won another Senior Solutions successful event. So this just gives you an example of where you're kind of thinking outside the box. Now, Jimmy, if you don't mind, I know you've just recently placed a couple of Liberty Banker cases with, or placed cases with Liberty Bankers over some of the other carriers. Could you maybe give us some of the examples of where Liberty Bankers really shines when it comes to underwriting?
Yeah, I actually wrote 4 in the last 2 weeks, and I was going through my notes and I couldn't figure out why I wrote the 2 last week, but they both went preferred, and I'm sorry I can't elaborate on it, but there was something there that triggered that they would have to either gone standard with Transamerica or graded with Mutual of Omaha on the husband, and I don't remember what it was, but he was eligible for preferred with Liberty. And then I just went ahead and quoted his wife and got a double header. So I got 2 right there with Liberty Bankers last week. We did the phone interview. By the way, if you're doing a couple and you're doing a phone interview, you want to have both worksheets ready to go so that when you call in, you're not having to hang up and redial. You just have the same interviewer handle both. But I mean, they were elated. They were both approved. There's, I'm just going to say this. It kind of sucks doing a phone interview that takes 30 minutes. Set the right expectation. It's going to take 30 minutes a person, right? But if you can get through that 30 minutes, at the end of the call, those deals stay on the books longer. They stick because in that person's mind, they don't want to go through all of that again. And emotionally, they're just so elated that they got approved. Like it just sticks and they know this is a real deal. So I have to say that, yeah, it kind of sucks having to do 30 minutes on the phone, but then when you get off, that's a solid deal. But I can tell you about the 2 I wrote yesterday. I had a lady. She was, she's never actually drank in her life, but she has cirrhosis of the liver due to a fatty liver. And she was otherwise, oh, actually, no, she's not otherwise healthy. She actually was first diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 32. And so that's pretty young. And she's on insulin. She started insulin at age 44. So with cirrhosis of the liver and the insulin use, she was still eligible for day one coverage at a standard rate with Liberty Bankers. And then her husband was overweight, but the weight chart is very liberal. Other than his weight, he was healthy. He was considered disabled. He had a disability due to osteoarthritis, and so he was a preferred, and she was a standard. And let me tell you, I was shocked that when I quoted him on Liberty, and I did a quick comparison of Mutual of Omaha, uh, Liberty actually beat Mutual of Omaha by a couple of dollars on him. And so I went ahead and just wrote them both up with Liberty. So that was a solid deal. Think about that. Cirrhosis of the liver, and she's currently receiving treatment. She was just diagnosed with it in January. So that was a big one. Um,
I'm looking at the worksheet right here, guys. Check this out. For like, and it uses the word. It doesn't even distinguish whether hepatitis C or B, right? It just says chronic hepatitis, hepatitis C. With most of our carriers, hepatitis C, um, what is it? Usually graded, right, Jimmy?
yeah, graded.
Yeah, and then here, cirrhosis of the liver. Wow. So, I mean, you really did them right. I mean, no one will ever be able to replace that business.
Oh yeah. Let me give you some highlights. So like, if they've had a heart attack, that has been more than 24 months, they would go Liberty Bankers. Or a stroke, they can go Liberty Bankers Preferred. If they have a AFib or a regular heart rhythm, they could be standard. Joe said this earlier. If they have a COPD, as long as there's no oxygen use, they're standard. The diabetes, as long as they were diagnosed after the age of 9, they can actually be preferred. If they have insulin use after the age of 25, they're preferred. But here's the beauty. Even if they were diagnosed with diabetes before age 9 or had insulin use before age 25, they're standard. They're still day one
Right,
coverage.
right.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. I've had people have a chronic kidney disease. They call it a stage 3 kidney disease. So they're not in stage. They're not on dialysis. That's graded everywhere else. That's standard right here at Liberty Bankers. I mean, so that's a big plus. They only have to be cancer free with no treatment for 2 years to qualify for preferred. So that's a pretty good deal.
That's, you know what? Yeah. Talking about the cancer, that, as far as I know, Liberty Bankers has the shortest, um, time period. Most are 3 to 4 years. So 2 years is pretty amazing.
Now, let me give you another example. You know what? I think this is the reason why. Yeah, it's coming back to me. The guy I wrote last week, he had a stent put in, like, let's say, I don't know, 13, 14 months ago, right?
Hmm.
Okay, on the question it asked, within the past 2 years, have they had a stent? Well, the answer was yes. He was, no, it wasn't that. I'm sorry. No, because that would be modified. He he must add something else. I'm sorry. That would be modified. Um,
Okay.
but I do want to say this on the bill chart. I always compare stuff to like Mutual of Omaha, which is really really liberal on their height and weight chart. And I like to go with somebody really short as an example because you can kind of get the gist of it. So with Liberty Bankers, if you have somebody that's 5 feet, right, they can weigh 248 pounds and still qualify for a preferred rate. Or they can be 252 pounds and they would be standard day one coverage. That's a 5 foot. That's really short. Um, the guy I had yesterday, he was 5'5" and he weighed 276. And on the chart, 5'5", 280 is preferred. So I mean, he just made it under the wire. So they're a little bit more liberal than Mutual.
Yeah, I'm looking at Mutual right now. Someone who's 5 foot tall, to get level, they have to be under 226.
Yeah, and then if they're over 244, they're not even eligible.
Right. Yep. Yep. Another, great example. So, Hey, Jimmy, before we let everybody go, let's tell them how to let's tell them where they can get the how to get the app downloaded on their phone, and then let's give them the password so they can use the app.
Yeah, just go to the App Store. If you're on an Apple, you go to the Apple App Store. If you're on an Android, you go to the Play Store. Just type in Liberty Bankers Life. I think it says capital, or no, it says ordinary. It says ordinary on there. That's the one. It's like a blue and white logo, like a flag. Download that, and then the password is rates for life. Um, and that's the number 4, rates for life. Um, Guys, this is a really, really good product. One thing I do want to point out are the times that you can call. So like if you're working with somebody in the evening or on the weekend, you can still do your phone interview from the hours Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. So just depending what time zone you're in. And on Fridays, it's 8:30 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're outside of those calling times, you want to go ahead and do your worksheet, and then you can actually either go back or you can call them during those business hours and do a 3-way call with Liberty Bankers. That's one thing that we didn't talk about, is that the beauty of this product is that you do not have to be face to face. You can do a 3-way call. And I just want to mention one last tip here. I've used this telemarketing sales tactic for people that maybe I wrote originally out of town. They're not in my home market. Either their application did not get approved with the carrier I selected, or maybe they let their policy lapse or something. I've had cases where I had people in another town, and they let their policy go 3 or 4 months, or even like I had one over a year, later. And I go through the health questions, and I determine this is going to be the best fit for them. I don't even have to go back out there and rewrite it. I can just call, do a 3-way call, do the phone interview and the phone application, and I'm done. And I rewrote it, and it's issued. Um, and one big plus about Liberty Bankers, we are set up with Express Pay. So that means that when you leave that house with the approval, you're done. You don't have to fax the app in, you don't have to email it. Typically takes about 2 business days, and you'll get your deposit in your bank account. The one exception to emailing or faxing is if you have to do a replacement. They do need to sign the replacement form that you do have to fax in with the reference number. Other than that, you're done. It's paperless.
Awesome, amazing.
So, all right, I'm done, Joe.
All right, buddy. Well, it's right on time, man. It's 11:30 here in Chicago. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you very much for participating in today's call. Hope this has been helpful, and God bless everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care, Jimmy.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, man. See you.